There are moments in a marriage that define everything, the highs you'll never forget and the lows you wish you could. For me, that moment came when the woman I vowed to protect, the woman carrying our child, looked me in the eye with a confidence that chilled me and said, "You'll forgive me." You always do. Those words replayed in my head for days. Not the action behind them, not the fight, not the mistake, not even the betrayal that sparked them. It was the arrogance, the certainty. Like my forgiveness was her safety net, stretched endlessly beneath her no matter how far she fell. Let me rewind. Her name is Claire. We'd been together 7 years, married for 4. When I met her, she was fire, sharp, ambitious, the kind of woman who lit up a room and made you feel like you were lucky just to stand beside her. And I was. I never took her for granted. Not once. I worked hard to give her the stability she wanted. We bought a modest home just outside the city. I poured sweat into fixing it up, fresh paint, a nursery planned for the day we'd need it, late nights installing shelves and sanding floors. When she told me she was pregnant, I cried. Actual tears. Because it felt like the final piece of the life we had dreamed together. But pregnancy, it changes things. And I don't just mean the hormones or the exhaustion. I mean the way people reveal who they really are under pressure. For Claire, it wasn't kindness that came out. It wasn't tenderness. It was entitlement. The small dismissals began first. I'd come home from work with groceries, tired, and she wouldn't even look up from her phone to say thanks. If I asked her how she was feeling, she'd snap, "You wouldn't understand." When I offered to cook, clean, run errands, she'd roll her eyes like it was the bare minimum, like nothing I did could ever count. And I accepted it. I told myself she was stressed, that carrying our child gave her a free pass to be short-tempered. I bit my tongue more times than I can count, swallowed down the sting of her words because I believed that love meant patience. But the patience I gave her became the rope she used to climb into arrogance. One Friday night, I walked into the living room and found her laughing on the phone. Nothing unusual, except the tone. That soft, playful laugh I hadn't heard in months, not directed at me, but spilling into a conversation I wasn't part of. When she saw me, she ended the call fast, a little too fast. "Who is that?" I asked gently. "Just a friend," she said, avoiding my eyes. I let it slide, but inside, a seed of doubt rooted itself. Over the next weeks, I noticed more. Late-night texts, her phone turned face down, that same distant smile she never offered me anymore. And each time when I asked, she brushed it off. "You're paranoid. You always forgive me. Don't be dramatic." That last line stuck. Because forgiveness isn't supposed to be assumed, it's supposed to be earned. The night everything came crashing down, she stood in our kitchen, belly round beneath her dress, arms crossed with that look of defiance I knew too well. We'd argued about the secrecy, the lies, the way she dismissed my concerns. And that's when she said it. "You'll forgive me. You always do. No fear. No apology. Just certainty that no matter what she did, I would bend, I would stay, I would carry it all." And something in me hardened. Because love is not a license for cruelty. Loyalty is not a blank check. And forgiveness loses its meaning when it's demanded instead of deserved. She thought she had me trapped. That because she was pregnant, I would endure anything. That I would keep my head down, keep absorbing her indifference, her disrespect, her betrayals, spoken or unspoken, because leaving would make me the villain. But she was wrong. And for the first time in our marriage, I decided she was going to learn what it meant when forgiveness was no longer an option. After that night in the kitchen, everything between us shifted. She didn't notice it right away, of course. To her, I was still the same steady man, the one who stayed calm when she lashed out, the one who kept the house running, the one who swallowed his pride because she's pregnant, let it go. But inside, something had changed. A switch flipped. I started watching instead of reacting, listening instead of defending, planning instead of pleading. The first step was silence. I stopped rushing to smooth things over when she got sharp with me. If she rolled her eyes, I let her. If she muttered that I didn't get it, I didn't argue. And when she threw that line at me again, "You always forgive me," I just looked at her, steady, and said nothing. The silence unnerved her. She wasn't used to it. She was used to me leaning in, explaining, trying to bridge the gap. Without my effort, she began to fumble. The second step was preparation. Quiet, invisible preparation. I started pulling copies of important documents, deed, insurance, bank statements. I opened a new account in my name only, transferring small amounts that wouldn't raise suspicion. I even spoke with the lawyer over my lunch breaks, someone who laid out my rights clearly and without emotion. "You've been patient too long," he told me. "Pregnancy doesn't excuse disrespect, and it doesn't erase your right to boundaries." I nodded. I wasn't looking for permission, I just needed clarity. Meanwhile, at home, Claire kept acting as if nothing had shifted. She'd scroll endlessly, laugh at texts she wouldn't explain, leave her phone face down on the nightstand. When I asked once more who she was always talking to, she smirked. "Why does it matter? You'll forgive me anyway." That time I laughed. Not angrily, not bitterly, just a small, quiet laugh that caught her off guard. "What's so funny?" she snapped. "Nothing," I said, turning back to my book. But the truth was, everything about that moment was funny. Because she didn't realize she was standing on a bridge I'd already burned behind me. Over the next weeks, I created distance. I still cooked meals, still drove her to appointments, still showed up physically. But emotionally, I pulled back. No more begging for closeness. No more asking her to talk. No more reaching for a hand she wouldn't give. And that's when she began to notice. One night, she asked, "Why don't you fight with me anymore?" I looked at her, calm. "Because there's nothing left to fight for if you don't care about losing." Her eyes flickered, but she said nothing. Another time, when she complained I wasn't affectionate, I answered, "Affection can't survive where respect doesn't live." Her mouth tightened. She didn't like those kinds of answers, measured, final. She wanted me emotional, reactive, the way I used to be. She didn't realize my silence was the loudest answer of all. And behind that silence, I was preparing for the inevitable. I had a plan. Not to abandon her recklessly, not to leave her stranded. I wasn't cruel, but I refused to be used as her emotional punching bag just because she was carrying our child. She thought pregnancy made her untouchable, that I'd endure anything, excuse everything, bend without breaking. But what she didn't see was that every day she dismissed me, every time she assumed forgiveness, I was pulling further away. Not in anger, in resolve. She believed forgiveness was my weakness. She was about to learn it was my boundary. And the day she crossed it for the last time, she wouldn't find a husband waiting with open arms. She'd find a man already gone. The unraveling didn't come all at once. It came in pieces, like loose threads she didn't notice pulling until the whole thing began to fall apart. At first, she brushed off my distance as moodiness. She told herself I was tired, stressed with work, overwhelmed by the upcoming baby. And maybe she even believed it for a while. But the silence grew heavier. One evening, she dropped onto the couch beside me, her phone in hand, and nudged my arm. "You never ask me what I'm doing anymore." I looked at her evenly. "Because you never answered when I used to." She blinked, surprised, then scoffed. "That's ridiculous." "Is it?" I asked, my voice calm. "When's the last time you told me the truth instead of brushing me off?" Her smirk faltered. And for the first time, I saw a crack in the certainty she carried like armor. The following week, she tried harder. She cooked a meal one night, something she hadn't done in months. She brought me a plate with a nervous smile, like it was some peace offering. "Thought you'd like this," she said. "Thanks," I replied simply, eating without ceremony. I didn't shower her with praise, didn't act like a starving man grateful for scraps. I just accepted it as if it were normal. Because once upon a time, it was normal. She watched me closely, her expression tight. She expected gratitude to pour out of me. Instead, she got calm acceptance, and that unsettled her more than anger ever could. Soon, the cracks widened. She started asking questions she never bothered with before. "Where do you go after work? Why don't you text me during the day? Are you mad at me?" The irony was sharp. For years, I had begged for her attention, for her to ask about my day, my thoughts, my feelings. Now she was scrambling for scraps of mine. And I gave her the same responses she had given me: shrugs, half answers, silence. One night, she snapped, "Why are you acting like you don't care about me anymore?" I set my book down slowly and looked at her. "Because you acted like you didn't care about me for months. Now you know what it feels like." Her mouth opened, but no words came out. For once, she couldn't twist it, couldn't turn it back on me. The next day, she tried a new tactic. She called me at work a rare thing and said, "I miss you." I paused before answering. "Do you miss me? Or do you just miss the man who used to forgive everything?" Silence on the line. "Then a week, that's not fair." "No," I said quietly. "It's honest." From that point forward, the shift was undeniable. She began to hover, to cling in ways she never had. Her phone was suddenly left face up, her laughter forced, her smiles edged with desperation. She was trying to prove she wasn't hiding anything, that she was still invested. But it was too late. Because here's the truth: once a man stops craving validation from someone who belittled him, there's no going back. I wasn't hungry for her attention anymore. I wasn't chasing scraps. I had already fed myself with resolve. Claire thought my forgiveness was endless, that no matter how cold she became, no matter how entitled she acted, no matter what lines she crossed, I'd always be there. But forgiveness is not an infinite resource. It has a limit. And the moment she assumed it was hers by right, she lost it. I had already made my decision. Quietly, completely. And soon, she would see it. The night it all came to a head was ordinary on the surface. Dinner, dishes, the same routines. But her unease was thick in the air, like she knew something was about to break. She waited until we were sitting in the living room, the TV humming low, and then she turned to me, arms wrapped around her belly like a shield. "Tell me the truth," she said. Her voice wasn't sharp this time. It was small, almost pleading. "Do you even love me anymore?" I looked at her, steady, calm, and answered with the truth she had been avoiding. "I love who you used to be. I don't love the person who looks at me like I'm disposable. And I can't keep forgiving someone who treats forgiveness like it's automatic." Her eyes filled, but I didn't waver. I've lived too long in the shadow of her dismissals to crumble now. "You can't just leave," she whispered, panic in her tone. "I'm pregnant. And I'll take care of my child," I said firmly. "But I won't keep sacrificing myself for a woman who thinks loyalty means I'll tolerate anything." She shook her head, desperate now. I was stressed. I was hormonal. I didn't mean half of what I said. I leaned forward, cutting her off. "But you meant the part where you told me I'd always forgive you. And that's where you were wrong." Her tears fell then, but I didn't reach out. Because tears now weren't love, they were fear. Fear of losing the safety net she thought would never vanish. I stood, walked to the hall closet, and pulled out the duffel I had packed weeks ago. She gasped when she saw it. "You planned this?" "Yes," I said, my voice even. "Because love isn't supposed to feel like begging. And forgiveness isn't supposed to be owed." She covered her face, sobbing. "Please don't do this. Please." I paused at the door, keys in my hand, and looked back one last time. "You thought carrying my child meant I'd accept anything. But you forgot one thing: respect comes before forgiveness. And once that's gone, nothing else matters." Then I walked out. The night air was cold, sharp against my skin, but it felt cleaner than any air I'd breathed in months. I didn't drive to nowhere. I drove to the apartment I had already rented. A place without bitterness in the walls, without silence that hurt more than noise. My phone lit up with messages as I unpacked. "Come back. We can fix this. Don't abandon me." But I didn't reply. Not out of cruelty. Out of clarity. Because forgiveness without change isn't forgiveness at all. It's surrender. And I refused to surrender anymore. Claire thought my love meant I'd always stay. That my loyalty meant she could push until I broke and I'd still come back. But that night, she learned the truth: my forgiveness had a limit. And she had crossed it.